Shearer breaks silence on one-away Newcastle striker Alexander Isach. Newcastle legend Alan Shearer has urged the club to move on from Alexander Isach, with the striker's future still up in the air. The Swedish striker remains a target for Premier League champions Liverpool, with the club preparing another approach after their first official bid was rejected this weekend. Isach has played no part in the Magpies' preseason preparations after ruling himself out with a thigh injury and spent last week training alone at his former club, Real Sociedad. On Monday, Isach returned to Newcastle's training ground, with reports suggesting he will meet with Eddie Howe to discuss his future. Speaking on the rest is football, the Premier League record goalscorer lauded Isak's contributions during his time at St. James Park, but insisted the club have to be ready to move on without him. "I'm not angry at all towards him," Shearer said. Alan Shearer insisted Newcastle would be well served in moving one-away striker Alexander Isach on this summer. Eddie Howe has been forced to consider his options with Isak's future at the club in limbo. And Magpies legend Shearer claimed the club need to be able to move forward without him. Do I like it? Do I understand it? Probably two different things. But I know what football's about, and I know how it works. Obviously, Liverpool have been into him or his agent. I just thought it might have happened next year. And if it really is impossible for Eddie to turn him around, and he says no and it sounds like that is the case, I want to be out now. You get your big money for him, and then you move on. As I said, no individual is bigger than any football club, and if he doesn't want to be there, fine, get what you can and get him out, and say thanks very much for the memories. Off you go. Howe has been forced to deal with multiple transfer headaches this summer, in addition to the uncertainty surrounding Isak's future. The club were linked with the likes of Liam Delap, Brian Mbeumo, and Hugo Ekitike, but ultimately watched all three join their Premier League rivals. England international James Trafford was also on the club's radar before Manchester City re-signed their academy graduate last month. Shearer reflected on the dismal summer thus far. "I think up to now it's been a disastrous window for Newcastle." Newcastle target Guhe. Crystal Palace are prepared to sell skipper Mark Guhe this summer. Now inside the final 12 months of Guehi's current deal, Palace recognize this window as the last where they can secure value for money. The England international is interesting Liverpool and Newcastle United. And the Mirror says Palace are prepared to sell at a starting price of £50 million. For his part, Guhe is ready to leave and has welcomed the interest of Liverpool. Liverpool learn fresh Newcastle United transfer fear as bid rejected. Latest Liverpool transfer news and gossip with updates on Newcastle United striker Alexander Isach and Crystal Palace defender Mark Guhe. Alexander Isach of Newcastle United. There is now less than a month to go until the summer transfer window closes, with Liverpool still being linked with several potential new signings. The Reds have made 7 new additions to their squad so far, and there is every possibility that more will follow. Arne Slot and company are currently preparing to face Athletic Club in their preseason doubleheader at Anfield on Monday. After that, attention will turn to the Community Shield against Crystal Palace next week before the Premier League opener against Bournemouth. Liverpool have until September 1st to complete their transfer business for the summer, with the potential for more signings to be completed and departures to get over the line. Here, the Echo takes a look at some of the latest Liverpool transfer news and gossip that has emerged on Sunday. Alexander Isach fear. The Mirror have reported that there is fear from Newcastle United about a potential move from Liverpool for Alexander Isach. The report claims that the Magpies are mindful that the Reds could return for a second bid for Isach after seeing their initial £110 million offer rejected. It has been reported that Newcastle believe Liverpool may be playing a waiting game, similar to when they signed Virgil van Dijk in January 2018 after first expressing an interest the previous summer. Mark Guhe update. Liverpool have reportedly had a bid rejected by Crystal Palace for defender Mark Guhe. According to the Mirror, the Reds made an offer worth £40 million in an effort to sign Guhe, whose contract at Selhurst Park is set to expire next summer. However, Palace are said to have turned down the bid from Liverpool, having set an asking price worth £50 million for Guhe this summer. Newcastle are also mentioned in the report as still having an interest in Guhe, but are seemingly not willing to meet Palace's price tag. Newcastle have reportedly promised Alexander Isach he can leave the club next summer. Newcastle have reportedly promised Alexander Isach he can leave the club next summer after offering him a new contract to remain at St. James's Park for one more season. The 25-year-old is said to be pushing for a move away from the northeast, with Liverpool seeing a £110 million bid for the Sweden international rejected. Isach joined Newcastle from Real Sociedad in the summer of 2022 and has since racked up 54 goals in 86 Premier League outings. He helped the Magpies defeat Liverpool in the Carabao Cup final in March, with his side going on to secure a fifth-place Premier League finish as they booked their place in this season's Champions League. But the striker has since told his current employers that he wants to explore a transfer away from the club and was left out of Newcastle's squad for their tour of the Far East, with the Magpies putting his absence down to a minor thigh injury. According to transfer expert Ben Jacobs, Newcastle Chiefs feel Isach will either leave the club this summer or sign a new contract as they view it as untenable that he will stay on his current terms. Newcastle have already tried to convince Isach to sign a new contract and have promised him he can leave next summer. Meanwhile, Liverpool do not plan to submit a second bid for Isach at present unless Newcastle offer encouragement. But if the Magpies open the door for a deal to take place, the Reds will be there to pounce. Alexander Isach has netted 54 goals in 86 Premier League outings for Newcastle. Isak's future is said to hinge on whether Newcastle can find a replacement for the blockbuster star and how hard he pushes for a move away from the northeast. Newcastle are currently pursuing the signature of RB Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko, who has bagged 27 Bundesliga goals during 2 seasons in Germany. But Eddie Howe's side reportedly saw an offer of £65.5 million plus £4 million in add-ons turned down on Saturday, as Leipzig were unhappy with the overall package. And Newcastle also faced competition from Manchester United for Sesko's signature, with the Slovenia international said to be impressed by the Red Devils after being made aware of Ruben Amorim's long-term plans. Isach has landed back in England after training on his own at the headquarters of his former club, Real Sociedad. According to Sky Sports, the player himself refused to join the Newcastle squad on tour in the Far East and opted to head to Spain to train with his own staff instead. The Magpies are said to value Isach at £150 million, but don't want to sell him, with the prolific goalscorer still having another 3 years remaining on his current contract. Newcastle reject Liverpool's £120 million formal bid for Alexander Isach. Newcastle United have reportedly rejected a formal offer from Liverpool for star striker Alexander Isach, with the proposed package valued at £120 million, including add-ons. The Swedish forward, who is believed to be open to a move this summer, has attracted strong interest from the Reds following an earlier informal approach. The Premier League champions are keen on landing the Swedish center forward, despite splashing £69 million on Hugo Ekitike, who they beat Newcastle to the sign in July. The Reds have spent heavily already this summer, snapping up Florian Wirtz on a deal worth up to £116 million, while Jeremy Frimpong and Milos Kerkez arrived from Bayer Leverkusen and Bournemouth respectively for a combined £75 million. Soft Football understands that Isach, who still has 3 years remaining on his contract, has made his intentions clear to Newcastle United, expressing his desire to leave the club this summer. In a telling move, the Swedish striker has opted to train at the facilities of his former club, Real Sociedad, while Eddie Howe's squad presses on with their pre-season tour in South Korea. Now, according to transfer expert Fabrizio Romano via his X handle, Newcastle United have rejected Liverpool's opening bid for Isach, which was valued at £120 million, including add-ons. The Magpies are unwilling to enter negotiations unless they secure a suitable replacement for the Swedish striker, a scenario that remains uncertain at this stage. The tweet reads, Liverpool opening bid for Alexander Isach was worth £120 million package plus add-ons. Newcastle rejected as they won't open doors, at least until finding a replacement, and it's not guaranteed at this stage. Isach insists with Newcastle on his clear desire to join Liverpool. Newcastle have attempted to persuade Isach to stay, offering him an improved contract that included a release clause for the next summer. Senior teammates also reportedly encouraged the striker to remain at St. James's Park, But Isak'S and his representatives have consistently reiterated his desire to leave. Despite their public stance, Newcastle are understood to be preparing for a possible exit and have started identifying potential replacements should the situation escalate further. Liverpool submit bid and agree £15 million salary for Alexander Isach. Liverpool are believed to have submitted their first official bid for Alexander Isach, while there has also been news on the rumors of the striker agreeing personal terms. The biggest transfer of the summer is still on the cards for the Reds, with Isach making it clear that he wants to seal a move away from St. James Park. Liverpool will likely have to break their transfer record for the second time in the same summer in order to sign him, having already brought in Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen for a mammoth £116 million fee. Sky Germany journalist has claimed that talks over the transfer are progressing well, with Isak'S representatives very positive about the saga reaching its conclusion sooner rather than later. An agreement is believed to be in place for the Sweden international, but it looks as though Liverpool will bide their time and try to be as respectful as possible to the Magpies, perhaps waiting for them to sign a new striker first. Liverpool willing to give Isak'S £15 million wages as bid submitted. David Ornstein revealed on Friday lunchtime that Liverpool have submitted a formal offer to Newcastle for Isak'S, which has been rejected. And according to a fresh claim from the boot room, Liverpool are prepared to pay Isak'S over £300,000 a week, which is exactly what the striker is demanding, earning him around £15 million per year. It is added that discussions have taken place via intermediaries, with these wages putting him just behind the likes of Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk, both of whom signed extensions earlier this year. Liverpool fans are right not to get too carried away about Isak'S moving to the club, but at this point it would be a surprise if he wasn't a Reds player come the end of the current transfer window. It is clear that he wants to leave Newcastle, with Ornstein revealing he has turned down a new contract with a release clause included, and the Premier League champions see him as their number one option to add to their attack. Assuming Isak'S does become a Liverpool player, and if they manage to sign a centre-back as well, Crystal Palace and England ace Mark Guhe would be ideal. This could arguably end up being the most exciting transfer window in the club's history. To sign both Wirtz and Isak'S is a summer that Reds supporters could only have dreamed of earlier in the year, and the likes of Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, and Hugo Ekitike are all exciting additions too. Oliver Glasner shares Crystal Palace transfer promise amid Liverpool interest in Mark Guhe. Liverpool is in need of a new defender following the departure of Jarell Quansah earlier this month, but Oliver Glasner has made it clear he does not want to lose any of his players amid the Reds' interest in Mark Guhe. Crystal Palace captain Mark Guhe is wanted by Liverpool. Crystal Palace manager Oliver Glasner said he hopes he does not lose any players this summer in what could be a blow to Liverpool's chances of landing Mark Guhe. Although Palace has not sold any players this summer, the club has only brought in 2 players, with left-back Borna Sosa arriving for a nominal fee from Ajax, and goalkeeper Walter Benitez joining on a free transfer from PSV Eindhoven. After guiding Palace to the first major trophy in the club's history last season, Glasner made it clear that he is not happy with how the window has gone so far. Even though all the players are still here, we haven't made the most of the transfer window so far, Glasner said. I was promised that we would be more active and bring in the new players earlier this year. As of now, I have 17 outfield players. I hope we don't lose any more. If that happens and we get 4 new ones on deadline day like last year, another false start is possible. Palace? Captain Guhe has been linked with a move to Liverpool throughout the summer as the Reds look to sign a replacement for Jarell Quansah, who left Anfield to join Bayer Leverkusen at the beginning of July. Quansah's move to Leverkusen left the Reds with just 3 senior centre-backs in Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahima Konate, and Joe Gomez. Liverpool's need for a new centre-back was underlined over the weekend as Gomez flew back from the Reds' pre-season tour in Asia due to an Achilles injury. Gomez has a reputation for being injury-prone, and his 2024-25 campaign was ended at the beginning of February by a hamstring injury he sustained in an FA Cup game against Plymouth. Addressing Gomez's latest setback a few days ago, Liverpool head coach Arne Slot said, "He was of course with us for the first part of the week, but he had some Achilles problems. Joe Gomez returned to the UK due to an Achilles problem. We thought it was better to assess it back in England and for him to work on him to come back to the team. Probably in more ideal circumstance for him than be part of the group that every time goes out. So we decided to let him go back to England, but we hope and expect to have him back soon. Irrespective of when Gomez returns, it's clear that Slot cannot hang his hat on Gomez due to his fitness record, and Liverpool obviously cannot afford to go into the new season with Van Dijk and Konate as its only other center backs. Guhe has long been linked with a move to Liverpool, and he could be available for a cut price fee as he has less than 12 months remaining on his current Palace contract. So, Guhe has no intention of signing a new deal at Palace, and if he does not leave this summer, he will be able to quit the Selhurst Park Club for nothing in 2026.